Ever feel like your immune system, it's like got a mind of its own sometimes?
Yeah.
You know, like some days you feel invincible and other days you're
Right.
like, one sneeze away from calling in sick.
Absolutely.
Well, get ready to dive into this whole world of immune age because today we're going to unpack why your immune system might be like way younger or even older than you actually are.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I mean, we usually mark aging with birthdays, right?
Right?
But all those internal systems, they kind of have their own clocks going on.
It's true.
And the immune system, man, that's a really interesting one.
Yeah, and a strong immune system, it's like your secret weapon, right?
Yeah.
For fighting off disease, just staying healthy overall, but it's not as simple as just like getting older, is it?
Not even close.
No.
It's way more complex than that.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we've got a stack of research.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
cutting-edge stuff on immunology, aging, and even a little bit of pharmacogenomics.
Yeah. See, now that's where it gets really interesting. Pharmacogenomics, it's basically how our genes can actually influence how our bodies respond to different medications.
It's like personalized medicine, right?
Exactly. Like what works for you might not work for me, and it all comes down to our genes.
Okay, so let's unpack some of this research. One study we have, it followed 135 adults
Okay.
over 9 years, and they used like these super advanced omics technologies
Oh, wow.
to collect a ton of data. I mean, we're talking analyzing like everything.
Everything. Like what?
From how often certain cells show up to how our genes express themselves, the whole shebang.
Wow, that's pretty wild. And what makes this study so groundbreaking is that most aging studies are just like a snapshot in time, right?
Yeah.
This one, it's longitudinal. So they actually got to see how things changed within individuals, tracking their immune systems year after year,
That's so cool.
instead of just looking at averages across the whole population.
So much more valuable information.
Oh, absolutely.
Because everyone's different.
Way different.
Okay, so is that where this whole IMM-AG score comes in?
Yes.
It's like a biological age, but just for your immune system.
You got it. That's a really good way to put it. So the study found that our immune systems, they don't age in this like uniform way. Some parts stay pretty stable, and then others, whoa, they change dramatically.
Okay.
And by analyzing those variations, they were able to develop this personalized IMM-AG score, which is kind of like a report card for your immune system's youthfulness.
Okay, I like that, a report card. So, like, if you find out you have a high IMAG,
Oh.
what does that actually mean for your health? Like, should you be worried?
Well, it's not necessarily a reason to panic, but it's definitely something to pay attention to. Having a higher IMM-AG, even if you're chronologically young, means your immune system is showing signs of what we call accelerated aging.
Accelerated aging. Okay, so it's like your immune system is getting old before its time.
Kind of, yeah. It's like it's getting a bit rusty, making you more susceptible to getting sick, slower to bounce back from infections, and potentially even increasing your risk of chronic diseases down the road.
Okay, that does sound a little unsettling. So it makes you wonder, like, what contributes to this accelerated immune aging? Is it just bad luck, or do our choices actually play a role?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And this is where it gets really fascinating because remember all that data we talked about?
Yeah, tons of data.
Tons of data. Well, when they really dug into it, they discovered some intriguing clues. For example, one study pointed to the potential benefits of calorie restriction, especially when it's combined with exercise, in influencing how our immune system ages.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that what we eat and how much we move can actually impact how our immune systems age? Like, it's not all just pre-programmed.
That seems to be the case. You see, there's this concept of primary aging, which is like the inevitable ticking clock, driven by our metabolism and oxidative stress.
Yeah.
But then there's secondary aging, which is influenced by our environment and our lifestyle choices. And that's where we might actually have more control.
Okay, so that's good news, right?
Potentially, yes.
We're not just stuck with the immune system we're born with.
Exactly. There are things we can do to influence it.
Okay, so I'm starting to think I might need to dig out my running shoes. But before I do that, tell me more about this whole calorie restriction thing. Like, how does that actually work?
Sure. So there's this really interesting study called the Calorie study, and this is a long-term study. And they specifically looked at the effects of calorie restriction in humans.
Okay.
And what they found was incredible. They found that calorie restriction could actually slow down certain aspects of primary aging.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But what's even more fascinating is that this study also looked at data from the Framingham Heart Study.
The Framingham Heart Study, I think I've heard of that. Isn't it like the gold standard for heart disease research or something?
Exactly. It is. It's been tracking the health of participants for decades.
Okay.
And it's given us so much valuable information about heart health.
Okay, so what does that have to do with immune age?
Well, get this. When the researchers compared the data from the Calorie study, that calorie restriction study, with the Framingham Heart Study, they found something really amazing. The IMAG score, that measure of your immune system's youthfulness, it was actually a better predictor of mortality
Wow.
than those traditional risk factors like cholesterol levels.
Wow. So this IMH score, it's not just some abstract number. It's like really giving us powerful insights into someone's overall health and how long they might live.
It seems that way, yeah.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
Right. It really makes you think.
But before we tell everyone to just like drastically cut their calories,
Yeah.
I have to ask, what about the differences between people?
Mhm.
You know, like what works for one person might not work for another.
Absolutely. And that's something that researchers are really paying close attention to now. For example, that calorie study we talked about, it mainly focused on Caucasian individuals,
Okay.
which means the findings, they might not apply universally. It highlights the need for more diverse research to understand how aging varies across different racial and ethnic groups.
That's a really good point. What we're learning about aging from one group might not hold true for everyone. Are there other factors too? Like, what about genetics? Do our genes play a role in how our immune systems age? You mentioned genetics now. That's something that I always find super interesting. Like, are we just kind of stuck with what we inherit from our parents or what?
Yeah.
Is there research that shows how our genes actually affect how our immune systems age?
Oh, absolutely. There's this fascinating study, and it used genetically diverse mice.
Mice, okay.
Yeah, so they could really look at those genetic differences. And they found that dietary restriction, so like reducing calorie intake, had a direct impact on lifespan. But, and this is the interesting part, the effects actually varied based on the degree of restriction. So how much they reduced the calories. And get this, the mouse's genetic makeup.
So you're saying, like, what works for one mouse might not work for another, even if they're, like, following the same diet.
Exactly. It's not one size fits all, even in the mouse world, which is why personalized medicine is so important.
It makes sense, right? Everyone's different.
Exactly. And get this, there was another interesting finding from that mouse study. They found that even without reducing their overall calories, just the timing of their meals had an impact.
Hold on, you mean like intermittent fasting? I've been hearing about that like everywhere lately. People are saying it helps with weight loss and even has other health benefits too.
Yeah, it's definitely gaining popularity. And this research on mice, well, it suggests there might be some real benefits there. They actually saw promising results in terms of extending lifespan with intermittent fasting.
Wow.
Now, of course, we need more research to understand how that translates to humans, but it's definitely, food for thought.
It's amazing to think that something as simple as when we eat could have such a big impact on our health and how long we live.
Right. It really makes you think.
It really does. Speaking of food for thought, we've covered a lot of ground here, from personalized IMMAG scores to calorie restriction, even fasting mice.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And I'm sure our listeners are probably thinking like, okay, where do I even begin? So if someone is listening to this wanting to improve their own immune age, what's the most important thing to remember? Like, what's the one key takeaway?
Yeah, that's a great question. It can definitely feel overwhelming, right?
For sure.
But if we zoom out and look at the big picture, I think there are three key takeaways from all of this. First and foremost, that IMMAG score, it matters. It's a much more holistic measure of health than just looking at your chronological age, how many years you've been around.
So it's not just about how many candles are on your birthday cake, but how well your immune system is keeping up, right?
Exactly. And then the second key takeaway is that your lifestyle choices, they really do have a huge influence. While your genetics do play a role, what you eat and how much you move, those have a massive impact on how your immune system ages.
So it's not all predetermined. We actually have some control over how our immune systems age.
It really seems that way.
Okay, that's good news. What about all this incredible research? How does that fit in?
That brings me to the third key takeaway. Research in this field is ongoing.
Okay, good.
We're constantly learning more, and we're discovering more and more about personalized approaches to immune health, which is really exciting.
I bet.
I mean, imagine a future where doctors could look at your genetic profile, factor in your IMMAG, all your other health markers, and then prescribe medications and treatments tailored specifically to you.
Okay, that sounds kind of like straight out of a sci-fi movie, but I am here for it.
Right.
It really highlights how much more there is to learn about immune health
It really does.
and how complex it really is.
Oh, for sure. And you know what else this highlights?
What's that?
The importance of research, especially research that includes diverse populations. We have to make sure that these amazing advancements benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Yeah, that's a really important point.
It was about recognizing that, what works for one person might not work for another, and that's okay.
Right. It's about finding what works best for you, which might be totally different from what works for me, and that's okay.
Exactly.
Okay, don't leave us hanging. What did this study find? I'm officially intrigued.
Well, they discovered that these pharmacogenes, the ones that basically dictate how our bodies handle medications, they actually show significant differences in something called allele frequencies. But, and this is key, between different populations around the world.
Allele frequencies. For those of us who might not have taken a biology class lately, can you, break that down a little?
Yeah, totally. So think of alleles like variations of a gene.
Right.
It's kind of like different flavors of ice cream.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. But for your DNA.
Okay, makes sense.
So allele frequency basically tells us how common certain gene variations are within a specific population. And what they found is that certain variations, especially those that are linked to how our bodies process medications, they're way more common in some populations than others.
So what you're saying is our genetic background, it might not only affect how our immune systems age, but also how our bodies react to the medications we take to, stay healthy as we get older.
Exactly. You
Yep.
got it. And this is where things get really interesting, really exciting in terms of the future of personalized medicine.
Okay, because
Imagine a future where doctors could look at your genetic profile, factor in your IMMAGE, all those other important health markers, and then prescribe medications and treatments that are tailored specifically to you based on your unique makeup.
okay, that does sound a little like the sci-fi movie-ish, but honestly, sign me up. That would be amazing.
Right. It would revolutionize healthcare as we know it.
It really highlights how much more we are learning about immune health and how complex it truly is. It's not just one size fits all, right?
Absolutely. And it also really underscores the importance of continued research in this area, especially research that's inclusive and includes diverse populations, to make sure that these amazing advancements that we're talking about, they actually benefit everyone.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone deserves a chance to live their healthiest life, no matter what their background is.
100% agree. It's about recognizing and celebrating those differences,
Yeah.
right? Because what works for one person might not work for another, and that's okay. We need to move away from this one-size-fits-all approach to health.
It's about finding what works best for you.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive, and I feel like I've learned so much about this fascinating world of immune aging, and I hope our listeners have too. So to all our listeners out there, we want to hear from you. What are some lifestyle changes you are considering making to potentially impact your own immune health after hearing this? Share your thoughts. You can find us on all the socials. Leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, stay curious, keep learning, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.